Good evening, everyone. My name is Danny Evans, and I'm the CEO and founder of Millennium Envoys. We would like to thank all of you for being here this evening and attending High School Global Exposure Creates International Trendsetters virtual panel series, part two of International Trendsetters Gateways of Opportunities from Studying Abroad and Learning Foreign Languages. On August 2018, my family and I, my mom, my uncles, I had two uncles and two aunts. We were in the airport in Japan, the capital, Tokyo. And as we were walking through the airport, we noticed a Chinese and Japanese family arguing. The reason why we noticed that is because we had to walk through them in order to get to our gate. It was a crazy experience because as we tried to get through, they began to talk to us in their language, their native language, Chinese and Japanese. They did not know that I can speak both languages. So as I turned to the Chinese family, I began to explain to them that, hey, can you please just be calm? It's a public setting and you really need to just calm down. They were completely astonished and they did not know what to say. It was like the Matrix, like everything just paused. And then I turned to the Japanese family and I spoke Japanese as well to them and told them the same thing. You know what it led to? Both of the families' attitude totally changed, and we all had dinner together before our flight to China. And as I was sitting there with the families, I just realized how important studying, studying foreign languages, to being in another country and actually using it. And as I'm standing here today in front of all of you, it led to me to to create Millennium Envoys, and we basically create language opportunities and also study abroad opportunities as well, where students can go all around the world and not only experience a new country, but also utilize the language and also be aware of the culture. I'm very excited today to partner with Black Professional International Affairs, just giving you more information that you can never experience in the classroom. So, also, I want to thank our panelists today for being here and just sharing the knowledge and experiences that they had with either studying foreign languages and also living abroad or providing study abroad opportunities. Next, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Tungara so she can talk more about Black Professional International Affairs.
Good evening. I'm Jeannie Maddox Tungara, and I am Vice President for Education and Exchange for BPIA. I want to thank Danny and Millennium Envoys for partnering with BPIA to bring this very important program to high school students. Those of us who are involved in international affairs really understand the importance of starting early. Some schools are already considered to be bilingual schools or immersion schools. So to the extent that you can take advantage of programs like that, I urge parents to put their students in these kinds of schools so that they can come out with the same kinds of advantages that children in more privileged environments frequently are able to do. I want to thank all of our panelists who are here tonight as well. Thank you for devoting your time. One of the things that we know is that there are three things that prevent minority students from engaging in international programs. Sometimes it's family. We call it the 3 Fs. Sometimes it's family. Family doesn't want their children to go abroad because they're afraid. Sometimes it's fear. Okay, the students themselves are afraid to venture into new territory, not knowing that the advantages of engaging with international people and with international environments creates this level of cultural competence that they are able to carry forward into jobs and to job opportunities. We're in a global environment today, so we know that employers are looking for these kinds of skills, language and cultural competence that comes with it. And finally, the third F, of course, is funding. So we'll be looking forward to our panelists tonight to show what types of funding are available, even to high school students, to have these very early opportunities abroad. My first time abroad, I was 19. In the old days, we used to do something called junior year abroad. And I was on my way to France at age 19. And it was an exciting experience. It wasn't a semester. These days, college students can go for a semester. In those days, we had to stay the whole year. And I've never looked back. I've never looked back. So I want to thank Danny, Evans, Millennium Envoys. I want to thank all of our panelists. I want to thank the parents and the teachers that are on this call. We rely on you to support the students, to encourage their initiatives to engage in these programs. So with that, I'm turning it back to Danny. Take it away for another great program. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would definitely love to take it away, but I also like to pass the torch to a wonderful, I would think, a hidden gem that is one of the future leaders of America, and that is our moderator for today, Kennedy Solaru. And I'm going to let her introduce herself and then take it away with the wonderful dynamic panelists that we have today. So go ahead, Kennedy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kennedy Solaru, and I'm an 8th grade student who attends Whittle School and Studios located in Washington, D.C. I would like to thank Millennium Envoys and Black Professionals in International Affairs to be the moderator for the High School Global Exposure Creates International Trendsetters virtual panel series. This event will teach you so much that can never be taught in the classroom. Studying abroad and learning of foreign languages are just fantastic. And also being aware of what the world has to offer from people that make a big impact is just amazing. I would like to request that the panelists try to keep their responses from 3 to 4 minutes. Thank you. We have 2 students, Leah Mann and Timothy, that contacted us before the event. One student would like to directly ask the panelists some questions later. Okay, without further ado, I will start the first question. Okay, can each panelist introduce themselves and tell us what they do and why students should consider studying abroad and or learning a foreign language?
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. So my name is Skye Henry, and I work for an organization in Washington, D.C. called American Councils for International Affairs. I'm sorry, American Councils for National Education. It's been a long day. I apologize. I've been here for 12 years, and I work. I started out as kind of a program officer, and I've grown into a program manager here. And I started out kind of primarily working in the Southeast Europe area, and now have been able to kind of grow into a larger range. And I'll talk about the program that I work on a little bit later. It's one of the most important programs I think we have in this country, and I'm so proud to work on it. But before that, I was just a student here in Washington, D.C. at George Washington University studying international affairs. That's where I have my master's from. And before that, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Romania for 2 years. And I've had a number of exchange experiences before that, both in high school and in college, to different places. And I guess why we often talk in my field and my office kind of about what sparked our interest in our fields and why studying abroad is so important. Like, we who work in it think that it's critical. You know, it's what moves change and builds bonds between people across the world. You know, we call that citizen diplomacy. And it seems so obvious kind of for those people who have been abroad. But why, I guess, so we spend a lot of time trying to explain it to people who haven't gone abroad before, maybe, or lived abroad. And so it's always kind of challenging to put it into words. But I guess why I think you should consider studying abroad, especially to learn a foreign language or for a longer period of time, why putting yourself in this experience for 6 weeks or 6 months or a year is different than maybe traveling as a tourist, is that it really exposes you to ways of life and ways of thinking that, like, you didn't even know were possible, like, let alone familiar. And it will, at the same time, like, push you to realize strengths that you did not know that you had. So ultimately, it will make you, in my opinion, like, a more confident and capable and successful person, like, in all kinds of ways, in your personal life, in your professional life. And I guess the best way I can kind of summarize it is kind of what I just mentioned. Like, people who have studied abroad, for many of us, it feels like after our experiences, our lives can be kind of divided into two lives: the time before we studied abroad and the life we have led since then. It's really just kind of eye-opening and life-changing. And yeah, we'll hear more about it later, but I can't recommend it enough.
Hi, everyone. I'm MacKenzie Galloway. I am a senior at the American University in Washington, D.C., but I am originally from Detroit. I'm a Detroit native. And let's see, it's 2021, so it's been 2 years now, actually, since I first got my passport. I got my passport at the beginning of 2019, and I left the country for the first time when I was 19 in August 2019. I decided that I was going to study abroad in Italy and Morocco. So I went to Italy first, and then I traveled to Morocco. When I went to Italy, I did not know a single person there. I did not know a lick of Italian. It was my first time out of the country. So for me, it was an opportunity to just have a fresh start and really test myself. And once I did that, once I moved to this new place, knowing nothing, knowing no one there, not even knowing the language, it gave me such a confidence boost, because I'm like, if I can do this, I can do anything that I want. And I did it, and it was the most rewarding experience that I've ever had. I was able to meet so many different people. I learned a new language. And then I traveled to Morocco, and of course, Africa, the motherland. The moment I stepped down there, I could just feel the energy and the power of the land and all that it had to offer. And I went there to study French. I have been taking French since I was 10 years old. And I went to Morocco to get a firsthand experience with actual French speakers, because I'm sure if you take language class in school, you know that it's very lecture-based, textbook-based, but when you travel abroad, you know, you're able to get a very well-rounded, authentic language experience. So if you are taking it, and you know what, if you are not taking a language, I highly recommend it. And if you are taking a language, I highly recommend studying abroad, because when you do, you go and you learn all these different phrases and all these different ways of speaking that you don't learn in school. And actually, my partner is a native French speaker, and if I wasn't able to speak French, then I wouldn't have been able to meet the person that I love. So I highly recommend languages and traveling. And there are so many different scholarships and programs that are out there that you can embark on and, you know, just indulge in and enjoy yourself and travel. I mean, it's the most rewarding experience that you could ever have. And especially being here in America, I think sometimes we forget that the rest of the world exists and there are so many other languages out there. You know, when I traveled abroad, almost everyone spoke English, and I felt dumb because I'm like, oh my gosh, you speak my language and 4 other languages, but I only speak 1, well, 2. So learning a language it's imperative, and it'll take you so far in life. So I highly, highly recommend it. So yeah, that's me.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole Rumeau. I'm the Assistant Director of Programs at the National Foreign Language Center at the University of Maryland, and also the Assistant Director of the StarTalk World Language Program that I'll get to talk to you about later. I would just echo Skye and MacKenzie's comments about why studying a foreign language and studying abroad is so beneficial to you. I met my husband of 18 years when I was studying abroad in France in 1999. So, yeah, I mean, learning another language, learning about another culture, immersing yourself in that culture can open so many doors to you, not only career doors and educational doors, but also doors to just make the world a little bit smaller and find the commonalities that exist between all of us. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm excited to share more about my program with everyone and answer more questions.
Hi everyone, my name is Yasmine Signey and I am a junior at Middlebury College majoring in International Global Studies with a focus in global security and a concentration in Spanish. And my interest in studying abroad and learning foreign languages started when I was younger. So I grew up trilingual. Both of my parents are immigrants. And so the first time I went out of the country, out of the US, was when I was around 2 years old. And ever since then, I've been to many different countries. And then I started taking Spanish in middle school. My district has now transformed into a Spanish immersion school where they start in kindergarten, but when I was there, we didn't start until middle school. And so I've been able to like start that language, and that's why I'm studying it now in college. And I've just been able, the reason that I enjoy studying abroad and like learning foreign languages is just because it helps you connect with more people, and just being able to go to a different country and like learn new cultures and being able to talk to the natives of that country is like really important. It's also like really exciting when you go there and you're like, oh, I can have a full conversation with you. And also just helps you to be very versatile later on in life if you're looking for a job or like going into the job field, and also helps you learn more about yourself when you're able to take place and like take part in different cultures.
Good. Hello. Good evening. Can you see
Yeah,
my
we can hear you. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, picture? You can see me, Danny?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, hi, my name is Tiffany Parkes-Moscova. I am a participant monitoring specialist at the Department of State. Originally, I am from Brooklyn, New York. I've lived in the East New York section of Brooklyn for most of my childhood life. I was afforded the opportunity to be educated by New York school systems. So I grew up kind of, you know, my life was a little bit different in terms of knowing what abroad life looked like. I wasn't really afforded the opportunity to study abroad until I was about maybe 18 or 19 when I went to college. So when I went to Delaware State University, that was my undergrad, I was given the opportunity to study abroad for a short period of time in the Dominican Republic. At the time, I did not know how to speak the native language, but after leaving DR, I was able to have not fluent conversations, but enough to understand how to move along and get by. Studying abroad is one of the most important things that you can do for your life. It changed my scope on how, it changed my scope and my vision on how my life should be, my life trajectory should go. I kind of didn't want to go back to Brooklyn to per se. I wanted to start seeing the world. So once I started moving into my adult life, I was able to travel and understand the world through a different lens. So when you study abroad, you get to see that there are people that live like you, and there are people that don't live like you, and there are people that have conversations like you and are almost the same. So the opportunities that were given to me helped me to move out of my mindset of living in New York City and move into another mindset of becoming the professional person that I consider myself to be. So I am so excited about having this discussion about studying abroad, and I hope everyone can apply to the programs that we have to offer.
The second question is for MacKenzie. Why is learning a foreign language a great skill to have in your career?
So studying a language, I remember when I first started taking French, and my mom was like, if you learn another language, that means you can get paid more when you work. And I was like, oh, so I'm definitely gonna stick with French. That was my 10-year-old mind. But now as an adult, I'll just give you a little bit of background on my career. I just wrapped up working for Congress. I worked for Congress for from 2019, from August 2019 to December 2020. And I also worked for a film production company in LA, and now I'm currently working for SiriusXM. And I would attribute a lot of these opportunities to my study abroad, because on my resume, when people see, oh, she studied abroad in 2 different places and she's only 21 years old, it's an automatic, this person is cultured, this person has a worldly view of things. They're not just going to see things from one lens, they're going to see it from multiple lenses because they've been exposed to multiple different cultures and different types of people, different types of thinking. As the people before me mentioned, when you travel abroad, it opens up your eyes to complete different ways of thinking, complete different ways of living. You understand that the world you live in and what you see every day is so minuscule compared to the rest of the world. And as that translates over into your career, yes, you can be paid more, but it also just gives you the opportunity to just bring different perspectives to the table, which people really like. When they hire you, when you're being hired for a job, they're looking for someone who is unique, someone who stands out from the rest of the crowd. And studying abroad definitely gives you that opportunity. And I'll also add that studying abroad in a place that is not as popular will also give you a leg up as well. A lot of people tend to stick to, France, Spain, Italy. I went to Italy, but jobs really like to see that you've studied other places as well, places that aren't as common for people to study abroad. Maybe you speak a language that is not as common. Mandarin is a really good one right now because China, in terms of its power in the world, is on the rise. And then there's a lot of languages, indigenous South American and African languages that are going extinct. And when people see that you have languages like this in your background on your resume, it shows that you are taking your part in the world and as a person on this planet to keep culture alive. So I highly recommend, no matter what field you're going into. I am studying to be a filmmaker, and languages has gotten me very far in that. So it doesn't matter what field you're going into, having a language just gives you more opportunity to be well-rounded, and it makes you more appealing to future employers.
Let me add something to that, because MacKenzie, also in your background, you was a language ambassador for Duolingo.
Yes.
And I don't know if audience heard of Duolingo. So it's basically the top language app that you can use to study foreign languages. It is some of the functions that they have to learn the language are free, and then you have some that you have to pay for. Can you just talk about you being a language ambassador and how that helped you study the language effectively, whatever target language you have, and then what the high school students can you how they can use that app to develop their language skills? Because I know it's very difficult for them to take what they learned in the classroom and try to utilize it outside of the classroom. So
Right.
Duolingo is one aspect that they can use to make it feel like they're actually abroad using the language.
Yeah, so Duolingo is an amazing app. I've been using it probably since I started taking French. It's been years. And it's an app on your phone. You can also use it on the computer, and you can do daily lessons just to help strengthen your language skills. You can learn a completely new language on there as well. And as a Duolingo ambassador, I'm not sure what the process is like now, but when I applied, it was very easy. I just went online, submitted an application, told them why I wanted to be a Duolingo ambassador. I was really young. I think I was only 17 at the time. I was still in high school, 16 or 17. And basically, as an ambassador, you plan events in your neighborhood, and you invite, well, Duolingo invites people to come to the event. You can also invite people as well. And it's literally just an event where you meet up and you speak the language with the people. So for me, I did French, and I also was interested in some Spanish ones, but I was a French ambassador. So I would just host events and, at French restaurants, African restaurants, because a lot of African countries speak French as well because of colonization. And people from the community would just come, and we would speak in French or speak in English and try to help each other out in French. And it was a really great way to not only learn the language, but learn other resources in your neighborhood that will help you speak French. A lot of the people that came to my events were taking classes at a center in my neighborhood that I had no idea about. I didn't end up doing it because I was in college at the time, so I was already taking French classes. But that was just one example of how this program really allows you to meet different people and really create a community of language learning. And I think that Duolingo does a very good job in making people feel included. I never felt as if, I was behind in the language learning, because with these events, there's usually people at different levels. There was a lady who spoke way better French than I did who would attend my events. And so I would just kind of let her, guide us and lead us sometimes. And then there were people who barely spoke any French. So if you are in high school, or if you are high school age or older, being a Duolingo ambassador is an amazing way to just get better at, learning the language, but also add to your resume showing that you are a leader, and that you are a leader in that language. That is very important. And again, I think that things on my resume like Duolingo are what helped me get, a job in Congress and get a job now. I also forgot to mention, I'm also working, I have 4 jobs, but I'm also working at my school's School of International Service. And we are the 9th best international service school in the country. So just having these different language attributes on your belt will really just excel you in your career, and Duolingo is definitely one of them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope I answered your question.
Did and then some. Thank you. So go ahead, Candy.
Next, for 5 minutes, we have our audience Q&A session. So far we have one question from Ashley Woodward. The question is, as someone who is not in college yet, how would you connect with native speakers for help?
I could answer this question. So personally, what I do is I have friends. So when I was learning Spanish in school, I had friends who were native and they did speak Spanish. And so I would ask them if they were able to speak Spanish with me. That way I was able to practice, as well as like I would always hang out at their house, and their parents would always speak Spanish with me. And I started going to, I think in the 10th grade or 11th grade, I started going to the Spanish service at my church instead of going to the English service. That way I was more exposed to the language, because during the school year I can't like travel and like live abroad. And so the best way was to just surround myself with friends who would be willing to speak the language with me, as well as like just going to like the Spanish services at my school, or at the church, as well as being involved in different clubs on campus. So we had a club called the Spanish Honor Society, and we also had Spanish Club. And so I joined both of those groups on campus or at school, and I was able to just learn the culture and like be around other students that are learning the language as well. And that just helps you to gain more exposure.
I can add a little to that too. I don't think I realized this until I was out of high school. And to be frank, the internet didn't really exist the way it exists now when I was in high school. So it wasn't really a possibility before then. But when I was in Peace Corps, we had a pretty good language boot camp. It was about 3 months, 2.5 months. And, that was great. And then we got put into our host communities where we didn't know anybody. And we had to kind of start from scratch, and formal lessons, the way that you would get like in high school, didn't really exist as much. You could get tutoring, but it wasn't as structured as like kind of an American is often used to learning a language in this very structured way. And I would watch a lot of cartoons on TV, cartoons in particular, because they're for kids and they're slower and they repeat things. And so the cartoons that were very popular when I was there were Dexter's Lab and the Powerpuff Girls, Fête de Powerpuff. And it was really interesting to do that. And now I'm married to somebody who's a non-native Spanish speaker, but he's a very fluent Spanish speaker. And we've chosen to raise our kids bilingually and have them luckily we got into a bilingual school. But now I didn't speak a lick of Spanish. I spoke French also, and then Romanian. And as I have just even been around two kids being raised, I started hearing like, food and body parts and farm animals and like the things that go along with like, little kids. And one of our rules for them, especially during this like virtual school while we're trying to work and stuff, is that we do let them watch, kind of when they don't have classes in the morning, we let them watch like YouTube videos that their teachers send to them. And the rule is that it has to be in Spanish. And so a lot of times I'll listen in with them, and it's amazing like what I can pick up and how my Spanish gets better just by watching them, watch these videos. So I would say cartoons, and you can absolutely search for those on YouTube, and songs, especially kids songs, but any kinds of songs. Like I would sing along with pop songs in the grocery store in Romania, and it really helped me better my language. Even if like the phrases I was saying were like, I'll whisper in your ear and like things you probably wouldn't say, it just like helped like understand the more subtleties of language, not just like words, but how phrases are put together. And you start like hearing it and repeating it kind of to yourself, and it helps you. It's like a puzzle. It helps put together the other puzzle pieces of language. So I would say, especially if you don't have people to talk to, the internet is your friend, and definitely go for like younger kid stuff or pop stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can also add, I worked a job, and I want to just give this opportunity to everyone else too, because it was an amazing opportunity. I worked at a boarding school one summer called Santa Catalina. It's in California. I'll put the name in the chat, and I think everyone could see it there. And this school it's a bilingual, well, the program is bilingual, so a lot of students come from Mexico. So when I was teaching at this program, I learned so much Spanish. And the whole summer, I was just immersed in Mexican culture. And I think you can apply in your senior year of high school and up, I want to say. And I'll send a link in the chat so other people can look. But if you're interested in learning Spanish, this is a great opportunity, and it's a summer job. So it's a great opportunity to learn Spanish and also get paid and live in California.
The last question we have is from Sophie Valborn. She's a 10th grader currently studying French at a school, and she has used Duolingo for around 3 to 4 years. And she's wondering, are these Duolingo meetups still happening since COVID times?
I haven't done any meetups since COVID, but they may have some virtual meetups. If they do, I'm not aware of them. But yeah, I haven't done any. But there's also a program called italki, ITALKI, and I don't think it's free, but it gives you the opportunity to talk to native speakers of whatever language that you are trying to speak. So I highly recommend that one as well.
Okay, so now we have a polling question, and we are now going to show it to you all. We're going to launch it now.
Please try to answer as soon as possible. We're going to give you at least 1 minute. This is supposed to help us make sure we attend to all of your questions or concerns you may have with studying a foreign language or studying abroad.
Okay, so moving on to question 4. It's a question from Timothy Brown, who was unable to attend tonight, but he sent us a question prior to this meeting. He emailed it to us. And Mr. Evans will read his question.
Okay, I'll be happy to be Timothy Brown for tonight's event. So he sent us a wonderful question, so I had to make sure that we asked it for him. And the question is for all the panelists. So whoever would like to answer it, please feel free to do so. So the question is, as we see many countries experiencing economic booms over the past decade, such as China, India, and several African countries, America has become less of a dominant nation. How should high school students adjust? Well, how should high schools adjust their curriculum to allow children to understand the importance of international relations and provide more intensive language programs so American students can stay relevant in this ever so changing world we live in? And this is for all panelists.
I'll keep my remarks brief because I think a lot of people probably have something to say about this, but I would say that's something I think about a lot, and I studied, as I mentioned, I studied international affairs, and I was in school kind of at the last couple of years of the George W. Bush presidency, and there was a big shift in the Obama presidency when he came into office, even talking about the fact that the United States was no longer kind of this the dominant player, that we should kind of like concede certain things to other countries. Like that was seen as almost sacrilegious in American life. Like, what are you talking about? America's not the best country in the world, not most dominant. And I think that's really struck me because I agreed with this kind of new perspective, and it seemed to, in some ways, be at least in my case, kind of generational. And I think my perspective on that is that it's critical for schools to do this because studying a foreign language inherently, it builds empathy. It builds empathy with the people around you. It builds empathy with other cultures. It provides you, as I mentioned earlier, with another even way of thinking that you didn't even know was like a normal way of thinking. Like you think your way of thinking is the way people think, and suddenly you're exposed to another culture and another language, and people just think incredibly differently about every single thing in the world. How you treat people in your community, how you treat family, how you view elders, things like that. So I think studying a foreign language is the first step, and it's not the step, it's the first step in this larger path of understanding the people who also live in the world. And I hope schools can play a role in providing you just the spark to get to get going on that path.
I would definitely echo what Skye says, and I would just add that I think high school curricula that is for world language education, they also need to make sure that they include a very important principle that the American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages has been pushing, and that is the integration of culture in teaching language. When I learned French, there was no culture. It was just, conjugating verbs and making sure that I had all the right vocabulary. But now when language is taught, it's a best practice to make sure that culture is really embedded in all of the content that is taught. The content is authentic and it comes from whichever countries where the target language is taught, and that culture is completely embedded in all lessons, even at the lowest proficiencies all the way up to the highest proficiencies. And believe it or not, it is possible to teach culture in the language. In other words, not switching to English to teach culture and have culture time and then switch back to the language to have language time, but to actually embed the culture into the language. And I think that's also very important for students to be able to really understand and make the connection between I'm learning another language and I'm also learning about how other people live their lives, and I can again find those commonalities between how I live my life.
I can also add a bit to that. If I remember correctly, in my elementary education, most of the history that we learned was centered around America and the different countries that made America what it is today. So even if we were learning about international countries, whether it be Europe or Asia, which were really the only continents that we focused on, it always trailed back into America and how that impacted America. I never learned about South America. I never learned about Africa. I never learned about the Middle East unless it was the Ottoman Empire. So I think that schools just need to be more international, not just teach about 2 different continents, or 3 if you want to include North America, and teach about the entire world and the history of the entire world. And unfortunately, it's not just a problem here in America. Even when I was in Morocco, they weren't even learning about their own history. When I spoke to the students there, they learned about the history of their colonizers, France. So our teachings in school are still very colonial, are still very imperialistic based, and so that we just have to change our mindsets. But for students, I recommend that you all read on your own and do your own research. That is going to be your salvation. That is going to be what saves you, because unfortunately, I mean, I don't know what the curriculum is like in elementary now, but you know, the textbooks haven't changed much, I'm sure. So you have to do your own research and read on your own and make sure that you have a good understanding of what's going on in the world, because school may just not teach you by the time that you graduate. So I highly, highly recommend doing your own reading and your own research. And if anyone has questions about where to start, you can reach out to me and I can give you some book suggestions.
Okay, next question is for Nicole. What caused you to become interested in foreign affairs, especially with a focus on Africa?
So I studied French when I was in high school, and I just thought it was the best, and it was probably the subject that I was the strongest at. And I decided to go to the University of Maryland to get my bachelor's degree in French language and literature. And while I was there, I decided that I did not want to be a professor of language and literature, and I needed to find some other way that I could work and still use my French. And I found a fellowship program for students of color that no longer exists, called the International Institute for Public Policy, IIPP, which partnered at the time with the Pickering program and a program called PPIA. But I ended up getting into this fellowship program, and I met a cohort of very passionate students who were interested in language and international relations. And I said, oh my gosh, this is my thing. These are my people. This is what I want to do. And I said, okay, where do people speak French? Because that's my language. And I did not want to go to France. Being a Black woman, I wanted to go to Africa. I wanted to learn about Africa. So I went to Syracuse University's Maxwell School, and I got a degree in intercultural communication and negotiation and African affairs there. And after I graduated from college, from my master's degree, I worked for 3 years in Burundi as an interpreter, French-English interpreter, and a program associate for the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. So that kind of is how I ended up working and being so interested in African affairs and international relations. But after I worked at the Wilson Center and worked in Burundi on negotiation skills training and peace building, I realized that I wasn't very interested in politics. And I found myself more interested in trying to learn Kirundi, the language of Burundi, than I was in all of the different political machinations going on. So that's when I started looking for a job that worked in world language education or world language advocacy. And I found the National Foreign Language Center at the University of Maryland, and I've been there ever since. So yeah, I mean, I have not had a lot of jobs because I've been at the University of Maryland so long. I really love what I do, and I love where I work. But I did kind of have a roundabout way to get where I am. And I think just being passionate about learning another language, learning another culture, figuring out that there are people in other places that are living their lives and wanting to know more about it just led me down the path that I went. So I did get a chance to visit several countries in Africa and work in Africa. And yeah, it's been a really good experience.
Thank you. The next question is from Leah, who has a question to directly ask the panelists. So Leah.
Hi. First, I'd like to thank Millennium Envoys and Black International Affairs for allowing me to ask my question. My name is Leah Mann. I'm 14. I'm 9th grade. I attend the Baltimore City College in the city of Baltimore. My question is, what has changed about studying abroad before and after COVID? And do you think virtual opportunities to study abroad are as common?
I can answer this question. So I was supposed to study abroad this semester because of COVID-19, we were not able to study abroad. And so we have gotten it pushed until the fall. And so for the last 3 semesters, this semester, the fall semester, and the last spring semester, my college has canceled all study abroad opportunities for students. And I was also supposed to go to Uganda last summer, which also got canceled. And so I think like because of COVID, a lot of students, it's very difficult for them to study abroad. So things that we have been doing at my university is we're still able to take classes at schools that are abroad. And so there's a school in Spain, the Autonoma, and I'm still able to take classes at that school. And time difference will be obviously difficult to deal with, but we're still able to take classes there. That way we're still able to work with professors that are native, that speak the language. And so it's as if you were taking classes there, except you're not physically there. And so you lose out a lot on the culture, but you're still getting the education. And so I think it just makes it quite difficult because when you study abroad, obviously you're not just learning the language, you're also getting immersed in the culture. And so you're losing out on the culture when you can only take classes virtually, but you're still learning the language.
Okay, and then I can answer some of the questions. So when you study right now, the COVID has pivoted the programs to go virtually, as Yasmine explained. However, with some of the programs that we have, there are peer-to-peer and host family interaction from the countries that the student would have studied abroad. So you kind of don't miss out on the interaction with the host family. It's just virtually, and it's not in person. We do anticipate that at some point, hopefully when we get past this this hump in the road, that we will be able to go back to going fully funded, you know, and invested into countries that we want our students to see and explore. But right now, the virtual aspect of it helps because it helps you to transition, and it also helps the kids in the other country to transition with virtually and learn how to navigate through the virtual world if they didn't have that experience before.
Tiffany, did you say something else? Because you went mute.
Oh, no, I was just saying that if they didn't have the virtual experience before, then they get the opportunity to have, they get that opportunity when they interact with the host family that they're virtually having conversations with in schools.
And one thing else I would like to add is another way to create another virtual experience for you, particularly with language or learning about different cultures. With consent with your parents, try using meetup.com. Meetup.com provides a number of different activities that is related to so many different cultures. I actually use it myself for Mandarin, learning Mandarin. So I participate in a virtual Chinese Mandarin Toastmasters. So I'm working on my professional Mandarin by practicing speeches with actual Chinese speakers, and also like Americans who are learning Chinese as well. And they also have language groups. It's all free, so there's no payment, none of that. And then people are willing to help you and teach you about the culture of the language that you're studying, because both are very important. And we can go to the next question.
The next question revolves around a presentation. The first question is for Tiffany, and the second question is for Skye. Tiffany, can you tell us about the State Department study abroad programs and why everyone should try to participate in the program? Secondly, Skye, can you talk briefly about the Yes Abroad program? Also, what kind of students would you like to apply?
Okay, So the U.S. Department of State Youth Programs supports we support the mission to build mutual, I'm sorry, something's going on. Okay. So we support the mission to support mutual understanding between citizens of the United States and people of other countries. So young leaders play an important role in achieving that mission and recognizing the power of youth. We engage with young leaders through a variety of exchange programs that include high school, college students, as well as young professionals, scholars, and others. Our programs empower future leaders here and abroad through leadership and development. So sharing the American values and culture and preparing them for a global society, our students learn leadership skills through enhancement, activities, and community service. They gain knowledge and confidence in their abilities to return home where they have access to extensive alumni network and they're ready to make a difference. The State Department is committed to developing leaders from around the world and empowering the youth voices. Exchange programs continue to play an increasingly important role in the American diplomacy. This is because the U.S. government understands that while government-to-government communications are important, it is the idea that relationships among our people that lead increase global security and prosperity. And I believe I did it the wrong way, but Danny was supposed to play the video, and I apologize for that.
No problem. We can definitely be flexible because we can tell that you're very passionate about the programs. So we can't stop you from actually talking about them because we're all excited to hear what you have to say about, well, everybody about the programs that are offered to these students. So we can go ahead and just play the video right now.
Colleges don't look just for GPA, they look, or like the classes you took, they look for, is this person adaptable? Is this person like friendly?
There was a little poster that said, hey, you could probably study abroad in Germany for a year. And at first, of course, I was a little suspicious.
Completing a year abroad with Cbyx Program is,
from an educational perspective, just extremely valuable.
By the time we did our mid-seminar, basically everyone was speaking at least conversation level German.
I would say you have to do an exchange year over a traditional year.
To challenge the ideas that I had and to challenge the ideas that other people had and to kind of come to a better understanding of how the world works and how we as people work together.
And being able to do it in their language.
To become more open-minded, and I think that's important for America because we have so much diversity in culture already.
I feel like definitely am part of the community now.
It's a big decision to go away for 10, 11 months.
I got to have experience that most people never even have.
When you grow up and look back, you will never forget it.
Colleges don't.
So I think, what was the second half of the question?
The second half was, why should everyone try to participate in the programs?
Okay, so was that was for me. So I think, well, so the State Department has over 1,200 fully funded and merited-based scholarships each year, from 3 weeks to a full school year. They live with host families, they study in local schools with previous language experience, and they don't require experience is not required for most of the destinations. And it is, to me, it is important and critical for you to want to study abroad because you get the experience. We have 26 countries, which include Ghana, India, Moldova, South Korea, Turkey, Brazil, Belize. In addition, we have person-to-person program, virtual programming through a program named Nestle Y, and which is also offered. And we also have another program called Cbyx and Youth Ambassadors. Jump in.
Yeah, do you want me to jump in? So can we go back one slide? And before I talk about my darling Yes and Yes Abroad, I'll definitely talk about Nestle as well. So Nestle is the National Security, a Language Initiative for Youth program, and my organization, American Councils, administers them. So many of you may be familiar with how programs like this work. I was not before I was a part of the apparatus, but you know, a lot of things that the government does, from environment to health to international work is designed and kind of funded and strengthened by the U.S. government. And then a lot of times organizations like mine or other types of international education organizations will kind of administer them. And so meaning, you know, hire the people to figure out like orientations and travel and support and things like that. And so my organization, American Councils, administers both Nestle and Yes Abroad and a number a bunch of other of Tiffany's programs, to the State Department programs. They're amazing programs, and I can't believe I didn't know about them when I was younger. But many people have no doubt heard of Fulbright, for example, and that's a State Department program, a wonderful one. So I work really closely with the Nestle manager and the Nestle staff. So I thought I'd also talk about the Nestle program, because honestly, it's one of the best kind of gateways into studying overseas, and especially studying a language overseas, because the pure purpose of the Nestle Y program is to study a foreign language in an overseas environment. So it's really kind of up your guys' alley. So the Nestle Y program is, like I said, a State Department program. It's a full scholarship. When I say full scholarship, there are some costs that the students and families kind of usually bear. I saw somebody was asking about a passport cost earlier. That being said, I don't want to discourage anyone from applying. If even, you know, applying for a passport is a challenge. We do have extra funds for those who need it for small stuff, you know, or things that would be considered kind of small, but are not small for some families. So please, I don't want that to stop anybody. So essentially it is a full scholarship, which means it covers all training and pre-program activities. It covers travel to and from the host country. It covers a stipend for living in the host country, and medical benefits, like emergency medical benefits. In case, you know, something happens while you're overseas. Most of the medical issues I see are people getting stomach issues or like a sinus infection. But, you know, there are definitely, you know, mentioned in the 3 F's, fear of studying abroad. One of them is, or your family not wanting you to get hurt, is definitely a real fear. And so the program does come with thinking towards that. Student safety is our biggest priority. And the purpose of Nestle is to train young Americans in critical, less commonly taught languages like Chinese, Russian, Arabic, Korean, Hindi, Indonesian, Persian, Turkish. And there are kind of 3 different ways that you can participate in Nestle, kind of in scale of less intensive to more intensive. So the first 2 ways that you can participate in Nestle are in person. So it's an in-person exchange. So there are approximately 600 scholarships to travel abroad in an in-person exchange. Approximately 500 of them each year are for summer. And summer programs are approximately 6 to 8 weeks, and they leave anytime between kind of maybe early June and late June, early July. And approximately 100 are for 10-month exchange programs. Many, but not all, Nestle students live with a host family. Many split time in between a host family and like a dorm situation. Sometimes you're totally in a dorm situation. Participants are predominantly in language class for several hours per day with other Nestle Y students at an educational institute. So when you're a Nestle Y student, you're going overseas with a group of approximately 30 people, sometimes fewer, sometimes more, to live in this kind of cohort and attend language lessons every day in this cohort. In addition to language classes, you also spend time with language peers, kind of in a more informal setting. And you also take part in activities in the target language. So this can be like cooking classes or photography classes. And sometimes it's things that you can pick. Sometimes it's things that are kind of picked for you. But the whole purpose is to really take language learning from the classroom into real life as well. The qualities Nestle looks for are students who are serious about learning a language in an academic setting and using the language in the future. So that means either future study or practical setting, like for work. And the reason I say, grades are important. They're not, you don't have to have like an A in calculus, and, having a 4.0 is not going to kind of get you into this program, and not having a 4.0 is not going to keep you from getting into this program by any means. But when you're writing your application, and I can talk a little bit about that later if people have questions, certainly the websites, which I can share in a second, have a lot of information about this too. You can even download sample applications from both Yes Abroad and the Nestle websites. What they really want to see is, why do you want to study a language? How serious are you about studying a language? And how do you want to use that language in the future? And if you are considering this program, you should know it is very academically focused in the sense that you need to be in class for a few hours per day. There is homework, there is regular testing. If you're not a beginner of the language, you test going in to see what your level is, and you test in the middle and you test at the end. But Nestle is open to learners of different levels. You don't have to have ever studied a foreign language to apply for and get into Nestle. They have beginners programs, they have advanced programs. And when you're overseas, you have each program has a resident director. These are usually, but not always, an American, and they see these participants essentially daily, maybe weekly, but almost always daily. The other way to participate in Nestle is through a virtual Nestle, which is kind of a newer program, maybe only a year, maybe 2 years old. And I would recommend this to people who are beginners. This is only for beginners and for a particular language. And it especially if you've never been overseas before, or you're not sure you're ready to go overseas, it is a 10-week session, a 10-week program. It has 2 classes per week, 90 minutes each, with an additional hour of homework or so. And the languages offered are Arabic, Chinese, Korean, and Russian, which I can attest from my many years of going through Nestle statistics with my Nestle manager coworker. Or Arabic, Chinese, Korean, and Russian are the most popular languages that Nestle offers. So that's a little bit about Nestle. If we could go to the Yes Abroad slide, and I will try and keep myself from.
Before you go to the next, you had a question.
Oh, yes.
I'm just going to blend it into
Yeah.
one. So apparently we have some students whose parents have clearances. They want to know, does that prevent them from going to specific countries? And then the second one is, we have other students who actually applied for the Nestle program and have been denied. So they want to know what they can do to improve their resume. So because they plan to apply next year.
Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of take this opportunity to kind of merge into yes, because these questions do apply to both. About the clearances, I think, I don't know how it will affect your clearances is based more on the parent with the clearance and whether or not you'd be able to keep your clearance. And maybe Tiffany can speak to this, I guess.
Security clearance for a job is what they're saying?
Probably a parent has a security clearance for a job, and is the child allowed to go to a country that will affect that clearance? I would imagine has to do with the job. And
yeah, it doesn't affect the clear. I don't think it has anything to do with the parent when they have to study abroad. If their parent works directly with the Nestle Y or within the Educational Bureau Affairs Division, I believe if your parent works for us, then you probably can apply because they're the program officer that, wrote the grant maybe. But other than that, you can, if your parent works for the government and they have a security clearance, you're more than welcome to apply to our programs.
Yeah, so it's not going to affect the student applying at all. I will say the State Department did update the criteria for who can apply this past year, and no child of any State Department, USAID, or implementing organization can apply for the program. And those are the kind of the full eligibility is listed on both websites. If you want to get into the details. So for example, my colleague who works on a completely unrelated program, their child can't apply. And a lot of this has to do with, like Tiffany said, fairness, like if they work on the grant, but also it has not been, it has happened in the past where someone who works in a different department might try and pull rank if there's an issue going on with their child overseas and they don't necessarily like it, or if their child is being sent home. And it just creates it creates a sense of kind of unfairness from all angles, and the sense of impropriety. And I think that the State Department's mission is amazing, both in the United States and overseas, in the sense that we want the programs to be run impeccably and with no sense of someone got in because their parent works for the department that funds it or something like that. So that's kind of to answer those two questions about clearances and stuff combined. Not being, applying for something and not getting it. Alumni are really good at talking. Alumni of the programs are really good at talking about this. The number of finalists I've ever known on Yes Abroad, especially because I work with those participants more, who didn't get in the first time they applied, it's so high. There's so many people who have applied for these programs the first time and didn't get in. And they all say, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I didn't understand kind of what was going to be asked of me in order to do these programs. Had I known, I would know that I wasn't ready. And the people making the selections could clearly see that I wasn't ready. So that's part of it, is that just because you didn't get in doesn't mean you'll never get in. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. These programs are really hard. And I don't say that to like scare anybody away from doing it, but to create a realistic understanding of what will be asked of you to go and live in another culture on your own. I mean, you do have support, but essentially you have to face challenging situations, whether it's like navigating public transportation in a language you don't speak every day, or trying to understand problems with your host family where you don't understand what the problem even is, but there's a problem. So I guess I can just jump into the qualities people are looking for both programs, for Yes Abroad and Nestle. We're looking for people who are open-minded, curious. Nestle really would like people who kind of know or have a sense of what they want to do and how they want to use the language moving forward, who want clear sense of goals. On Yes Abroad, I sometimes actually think that's like a little bit of a negative tick, because Yes Abroad, when I'll talk about it in a minute, maybe I can kind of transition into that, is so different and unexpected in so many ways and requires so much flexibility and adaptability, the ability to see a situation that is so different from anything you've ever experienced. And instead of saying, that's wrong, or I don't like that, or this needs to change, you can observe and try and make sense of what's happening and learn something new about the people you're living with and maybe about yourself. So I would say, if you're interested in kind of maybe why you didn't get in, don't feel bad about yourself. Keep trying. Especially Nestle is extremely competitive, especially for certain ages in certain countries. And I would also say, cast your net wide. Don't focus on one specific, I can say, Korean is very popular. I mentioned Chinese is very popular. Arabic and Russian are kind of the next step of popularity in terms of what people apply for. But feel, cast your net wide. And just because you don't get like Chinese doesn't mean you're never going to go to China. You're never going to be perfect at Chinese. I have a lot of participants who went on Yes Abroad who studied, there's one who went to Ghana, right? Which was living in an English speaking world. And now he works in China. And when you ask him how he got there, he says, it's because I started on this program in Yes Abroad in Ghana. And so these one experiences kind of lead you to other ones, as the other panelists were talking about. So check out the goals of the program. And when you're writing your applications and your essays, really focus on that and try and tailor to that. And let me just jump really fast into Yes Abroad, because a lot of the things kind of go hand in hand with that. So Yes Abroad itself is also a U.S. Department of State exchange program, just like CBYX and Youth Ambassadors, like Tiffany was talking about. It's a full scholarship, and it is for a 10-month only stay. And there are 14 countries. And Yes Abroad is actually part of a larger kind of umbrella called the Yes Program. The Yes Program started after September 11th, in reaction to September 11th by a bipartisan act of Congress to help young Americans and Americans in general understand the Muslim world. And it has had over 40 countries participating, sending over 900 foreign high school students from 40 countries to the United States to live with host families, go to regular American high school, learn about the values of America and what makes Americans American, as diverse as we all are. And in 2009, the State Department opened it up to send Americans back to yes countries. So now out of the, I think 38 or 39 yes inbound countries we send Americans to 14 of those yes countries. Countries are in Southeast Europe, the Middle East and North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Indian subcontinent, and Southeast Asia. Like I mentioned, students go to live with a host family, they go to high school, you fully immerse into the local culture. And while fluency in the language is not required in the program, for the program, it's not even a goal of the program, all host countries do provide language training as a means to support your integration into a host community. And most of the participants that I've ever met come back speaking the language. It's the more you put in, the more you get out. Yes Abroad looks first and foremost for people who are, like I mentioned, open-minded, curious about the world. Living in a new culture is not just about food or language. Those things can be very isolating and tricky, and they are hard. But the real challenge is living in a place where, as I mentioned, normal is very different than what your normal is. Every aspect of your day is different, like what, when, how you eat, the people you communicate with, ideas about how the world works. And you don't need, kind of a little bit different than Nestle, you don't need a specific GPA for neither program is GPA like the be all end all. Nestle does have I think you have to have a 2.0 or higher, maybe it's 3.0 or higher, but definitely check on their website. Yes Abroad, you don't have to have a minimum GPA, and being scholastically inclined is definitely not as important. Now, if you are placed in a high school overseas where you're studying in English, so about half of our countries study in an English-speaking high school, and you would need to participate in school and you would very likely get grades and you would need to keep up with that. But in a lot of our countries, or even in some of the countries where we have English-speaking high schools, if you're a gap year student, so this is also if both programs have gap year opportunities, you would be placed in some of the countries if you're gap year, and in some of the countries, no matter what year you are, you'd be placed in a school where you're only speaking Thai or Bahasa Indonesian or Bosnian or Turkish. And so obviously you can't keep up with the schoolwork, and your goal is simply to kind of be present emotionally, psychologically, and to work on your language. And maybe halfway through the year, you start understanding what's going on. So it's much more of a social, cultural engagement. Kind of a note about schools, I guess, whether or not you can get a transcript and, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Scott, let's go ahead. So we got to finish up. So
got it. No, I mean, that's it.
Thanks everyone for being engaging, but
I'm sorry about that. No. Yeah. So those are the last couple of my notes. And if you want to keep, I guess, engaged in either program, and I would imagine Nestle-wide too, you can definitely go to their websites, definitely go to social media. Facebook, Nestle-Y has an Ask an Alum Facebook page. I'll try and find it and send it to you. And you can get in there and ask questions of alumni. Both programs have Instagram. And I would say the most important thing you would get from that is really getting a sense of what life is like in those countries and why the programs are valuable.
Danny, can you ask her to tell our audience how they can become hosts, since she's talked about the students coming from abroad that need hosts?
Yeah, let me put a little note in here. I was totally going to say Flex, the program that Yes is based on. It was one of the very first exchange programs like this. You can host students from the former Soviet Union, from yes countries, and from CBYX. And especially if you're interested in learning about other cultures, but you're not ready to travel overseas, hosting is a great way to get a sense of that. And a lot of times our participants started off by hosting. So I'll put a link in there about how to host on those programs as well. Thank you for bringing that up. And with that, sign off.
Please put your questions in the Q&A, because it would allow us to type out the questions too, because we can't get to every question because of time constraints. So if you have a question, type it out, please, in the Q&A. Either we'll answer it by even typing a message or doing the discussion. Thank you. So go ahead, Kennedy.
Okay, the next question is for Nicole. And the question is, what is the Star Talk program and what kind of students are you looking for?
Sure. So Star Talk is a domestic program, which means it's in the United States. It is across the country, and we've been in all 50 states. I think this coming year we'll be in maybe 36 to 39 states across the country. It offers free summer world language intensive study for students. And it has programs from kindergarten all the way through undergraduate school. We're here to talk about high school level programs. And I saw that there are a couple of middle school students here as well, I saw from the survey. So in 2021, we will have programs in Chinese, Dari, Hindi, Korean, Persian, Russian, Turkish, and Urdu. I saw someone ask where the African languages. I think the year before last was our last year of about 10 years of having Swahili as one of our languages, but the government decided to discontinue Swahili for now, but they are constantly changing the languages. The program is sponsored by the National Security Agency, NSA, and the reason for that is to inspire more students to explore world languages in hopes of improving the workforce, particularly in intelligence agencies, because they are really at a deficit. They don't have enough people who speak these languages to work with them. And so there are lots of careers in intelligence as well. So Star Talk is a really, really great program to enter into if you're interested in studying one of these less commonly taught languages during the summer. The programs are generally free or they're very low cost. They usually can be anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks over the summer. What else can I say about them? We also offer programs for teachers of world languages. And so we do a lot of teacher training because we're in the business of trying to improve world language education. Oh, another person had asked about the Nestle program and what can improve your application. We do know from statistics that we share with the Nestle program is that Star Talk students do fare better on the Nestle application. It's a very competitive program, like Skye was saying. So completing a Star Talk program can give you a little bit of an advantage in applying for a Nestle program and can prepare you for that world language education that you'll be doing. In addition to that, I just wanted to add a little bit about the National Foreign Language Center. We have an online language portal for language maintenance, and that's usually for folks who have a pretty advanced level of the language, but there are 103 different languages on the portal, and there are different exercises, videos and text with translation, and audio, and you can do different activities if you're interested in maintaining a language that you already have. And I can't think of many languages that aren't on that list. So there's plenty of activities there as well. But the Star Talk program is a really great way for you to be at home if one of your F's that that Tiffany I think was talking about is that you're concerned about your family not being worried about you studying abroad just yet, or you're being worried about studying abroad just yet. This is a great way to kind of dip your toes into learning another language and another culture. The programs are in all different levels of proficiency, so whether you're just starting or you've been learning Chinese for several years, it's really a great way to improve your language skills. So yeah, that's basically it. Did you ask what kind of students? I can't even. Oh yeah, what kind of students are we looking for? Really, students who are excited about learning another language, who are focused. Most of the people who join into Star Talk programs tend to be language nerds. They're not being forced there by their parents. They really are into it, and they learn a whole lot, and they're really exciting and fun programs. It's not like taking a language at your school during the school day. It's a lot more engaging. Classes are taught 95% in the target language. So even if you're at a zero level, you've never learned the language before, when you go into class, it's going to be entirely in Korean or Turkish or whatever it is. So yeah.
And I would like to add something to that. Um, as far as talking about the National Security Agency, they actually have jobs for high school students.
They do have an internship program, yeah.
Yeah, internship program, language program, where they will hire you and teach you the language in high school, pay you money, yes, money, to learn a critical foreign language. So critical foreign languages are Mandarin, Chinese Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, Korean, the difficult languages that you are not learning in school. I did in the chat, I sent the link out. So you really want to apply for that, and to really help your application, try to take a Star Talk program and then apply for one of those high school opportunities that many students do not know about. They do not know that many government agencies do hire high school students. It's probably the best place that you can work in high school. You just have to look for it. But today we are coming to you, so you have it made. So please take a look at all the links that were provided for the Nestle, all the other State Department programs, the Yes Abroad program, and also the National Security, also the Star Talk program. And I want to include NSA language program, STEM program as well for high school students. So please take a look at that.
Oh, and I just realized that Arabic's not included in this list, and that may have been my bad that I didn't include it. But Arabic is the other language that we also teach.
So Kennedy, we can go to the next question now.
Okay, the next question is for Yasmine. What is one of your best experiences studying abroad? And could you tell us one memorable moment that you will never forget from your experience?
Yes. So one of my favorite experiences going abroad and studying abroad was the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. So I came back the first week of 2020. I was in Thailand, and I went to Thailand to judge the World Championship debating tournament. And so I was there to judge, and we judged. Tournament was about a few days, so we judged for about a week, and then I was there for 3 weeks. And so I was able to not only judge the tournament, but also experience the country. And at the tournament, because it was worldwide, I was able to meet so many new people, just people from around the world. I have friends that like live in Venezuela now, or live in Indonesia, or live in India, just because I was able to connect with them at the tournament. And before going to Thailand, me and another friend worked to learn a few basic words in Thai so that we would be able to communicate there in case we were in an area where they don't speak much English. And so we learned the numbers, we learned basic things such as like greetings, like hello, goodbye, good night. And we were there on Christmas to New Year. So we learned how to say like Happy New Year, and just being able to communicate and talk to people there was like really great and like super important. And while we were there, we did a lot of the touristy things. So we visited the temples, and we went to a few of the beaches, but we also were able to, we had a friend there, her name was Alice. So we had a friend there, and she's actually from New York, but her family's from Thailand, and she just happened to be in Thailand when we went there, and she's an older woman. And so we met up with her while we were in Thailand, and because she is native to the country, she took us to a lot of the local places in the country that tourists wouldn't normally go through. And so we were actually able to hear more Thai. We were able to eat different Thai meals, go to like underground places, which I guess people would call them. And so that was really great, just being able to see the country from the inside instead of seeing the country from like an outside lens. We're actually able to get like a cultural feel for the country, which was so much fun. And I just learned so much about the people there. And I'd say that my favorite memory in Thailand was when, I'm trying to think. So I think my favorite memory in Thailand was when we went on a canal tour. And while we were on the tour, we were able to see the backs of the temples instead of like the outside of the temple. So we were like in a canal and seeing the back of the temples. And while you're there, you can buy bread and feed the catfish that are in the water. And that was kind of scary, but that was also a lot of fun. And so that was super fun, just being able to do that and being able to, they have like, you can get in the boats and they have like a river market. And so there are people in the market, in the river market, like in boats in the river selling things. And you're also in a boat as you go through. And that was just a lot of fun, just being able to be there and like support people, support the Thai people, and like just being able to see the country, not only from the outside, but also from the inside.
Thank you. That story is wonderful. I hope to travel to Thailand one day and visit the temples and visit their nice oceans and beaches. The same question applies to MacKenzie. What is one of your best experiences studying abroad? And could you tell us one memorable moment that you will never forget from your experience?
So my favorite experience is traveling. Oh, that's me. My favorite experience is traveling abroad. There's so many. Definitely going to Africa. Like, you cannot be going to the motherland. If you all are considering traveling abroad anywhere, I highly recommend Africa. I've only been to Morocco, so I can't even speak for the rest of Africa. I was actually supposed to be in Cameroon right now, but that didn't end up happening. But I highly, highly, highly recommend it. My friends and I would say everything just hits different in Africa. Like, everything is just heightened. You know, if anyone's seen the Vampire Diaries or any of the vampire shows where they say all the vampires feel things more intensely, that's what it felt like to be there. All the food tasted better. All the scenery just looked better. Everything was just better. So the entire experience as a whole was just so phenomenal. I can't even think of my favorite. Honestly, the best part about traveling abroad honestly would have to be me meeting my partner, because, you know, love. But I also met so many amazing people. I now have friends who live all over the world. Like, I can call up people in Switzerland, in Amsterdam, in Italy, in Egypt, everywhere, because not only does traveling abroad give you a chance to connect with the people, the native people there, but it also gives you a chance to connect with people from all over the world. Because when I traveled to Malta, for example, I met my friends from Switzerland. They just happened to be traveling to Malta too. So it just gives you a chance to meet so many different people and be immersed in so many different cultures. Yeah, I'm trying to think, what were some of my other favorite moments? Honestly, the food in Morocco, for $2 at this little restaurant by my house, I would get a sandwich, fries, pasta, rice, and a drink for only $2, and it tasted like heaven. Or for $1, I would get a sandwich, and all it was meat, but it tasted like heaven in my mouth. So the food is amazing, the culture is amazing. In Morocco, they loved us. They loved that we were from out of the country, but we were all, Black women of color, and we spoke their language. That always helps you, especially if you're shopping. I'm a big shopper, so when I went to the market, I would always start off speaking in English, and then so they would think I was a tourist. And then I would speak in French because that's the colonized language of Morocco. So they'd go, okay, she speaks French. But then I would speak in Arabic, and then they'd be like, woo! And then I would get something for free. So every time I spoke in a different language, the price got reduced each time I spoke a different language. So that was definitely one of my highlights. And just being, when I was in Italy, just being in Italy and being able to travel to places like Malta for 23 euro, which by the way was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And being able to travel to London, being able to travel to Amsterdam in these photos. In the top left picture, that's me in DC. Then that's me in front of the Coliseum to the right. That's Niagara Falls to the right of that. And at the bottom, that is in Amsterdam. So I've been able to travel to all these different places on a budget. And that's another thing. Travel is not as expensive as people make it seem. Like I said, when I was in Italy, I got a round trip flight to Malta for only 23 euro. So you can find cheap flights, especially right now if you're planning to travel. Maybe you have to wait a couple months, but the flights are very cheap right now, and you can always find travel bundles or really good Airbnb deals. It's definitely not as expensive. Instead of buying a Gucci belt, you could go on a trip to Puerto Rico. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Yasmine, and the question is, as a middle school or a high school student, what is the best advice you would give us to build a solid foundation in international relations? Are there any other programs we should be aware of as we prepare for college?
Okay, so I started my experience with international relations when I got to college, but there are definitely so many things that you can do in middle school or high school to prepare in international relations. The first thing that I would say is I'm not sure what courses many of the students have at their school, but if you take a world history class, then you're able to already learn about things that have happened around the world, as well as doing your own research and like studying the news, or like there's CNN 10, which is just 10-minute news, and that's super easy to follow, just to learn about what's going on, because the only way for you to understand what's going on around the world is if you watch the news and you're caught up with everything that people are doing across the world. I would also say that there is a program that students should look out for, and it's called UWC, which is United World Colleges. And basically it unites like people, cultures, and nations, and they create international and like intercultural understanding, celebration of difference, and language learning. And there are about 18 different schools on 4 different continents. And basically students would go to the school, and it's sort of like a boarding school. So for example, there's UWC Adriatic, which is in Italy. There's UWC Southeast Asia, which is in Singapore. And there's just different UWC schools around the world. And so you would go there and you would go for high school. And basically you would study the language that they teach there. You would be surrounded by students from all across the world. And that just gives you the chance to study and live abroad while in high school. And you're able to learn so many things. You're learning languages while you're over there, and they teach you international relations in high school while you're there. But if you don't want to spend the entirety of your high school period at a UWC school, then they do have shorter programs that like operate for like just a small period of time in the summer. So they do have shorter programs, but it is like a really great opportunity that I feel like a lot of people don't really know about. And they do also offer scholarships to students if they're not able to pay the tuition to go there. And I like really recommend that students look into UWC if that's something that they're really interested in. I also recommend that lots of schools offer school trips. As of right now, I don't think many schools are able to offer international school trips, but lots of high schools do offer international school trips. And I recommend going on the school trips because you learn a lot about the culture to whatever country you're going to. And if your school doesn't offer a school trip, but a school nearby does, they usually open it up to the community or students at other high schools to go on the school trips. I know that's what they do here in Delaware. So a lot of students would go. In my high school, we would go on trips we went to Costa Rica, we went to Peru, and we went to France. and during my time in high school, and students that didn't go to my school but went to surrounding schools in the area were allowed to go with us on our trip just because their school didn't offer the trips that we offered. And so just being able to go on trips like that, you're able to learn more and experience more in the international realm, as well as Education First is a program where you're able to go on trips as well. And they have trips within the US, but they also have trips outside of the US. And just being able to go on these trips helps you to be involved in what's happening internationally, as well as just watching the news, staying up on the news. And if you do want to start studying abroad early, UWC is a great choice. And you'll just also meet so many people from around the world that it'll help you later on if you, let's say you wanted to work in a different country and you have a friend that lives there, they're able to like tell you what jobs are available because you went to school with them back in high school. And so those are just different opportunities that are available.
Thank you, that's amazing. I'm definitely gonna look into that. The next we're gonna do is a Q&A. So if you have any questions, if the attendees have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box.
I actually have a question for all the panelists. So as far as either studying abroad or learning a new language, what can high school students do now to help them prepare for like either college or a trade? Because I think most of them do want to go to college here. So let's just focus on that. In terms of like schools that they want to maybe go to, do you have any suggestions on various international programs at a college that they can attend that can possibly help their career moving forward in the international arena?
I can start. So I do go to Middlebury College, and Middlebury College is the #1 school for languages. So if you are interested in learning a language, I do recommend looking into Middlebury College. If you're not able to get into Middlebury College as a student, we do have Middlebury language schools, which are summer programs that you can attend. And we have different languages such as there's Russian, there is Korean, there's Chinese, there's Japanese, there's Spanish, French, Portuguese, and I think there are a few other languages that I'm missing, but Middlebury Language Schools does operate in the summertime, and you can start that when you're 18. If you don't get into the school, even if you get into Middlebury, you can do Middlebury's language schools. I participated in language schools, but it's a great way to learn the language and learn the culture of whatever language you're studying. And your professors are native speakers. I had a professor from Spain and also another professor from Argentina. And so these are native speakers that are being flown in to teach you. And so you learn a lot about the culture and the language and the history of the countries that you're studying. For example, we learned about colonization within Latin America as well as in Spain. And so I just recommend like just looking into Middlebury as an option for studying languages because it is like a really great school and you will learn a lot of information there. And we also have a really good international program, which I'm a part of, as well as the Middlebury Institute of like the International Institute. It's another school that we have in Monterey, California. And they also teach a lot about international relations and just global studies. And so if you're interested in that, I recommend also looking into that school just for later on.
And then I think I had mentioned the Youth Ambassadors Program. So you could apply for the U.S. Youth Ambassadors Program for an opportunity to travel for 3 weeks. It's a 3-week program that brings together high school students and adult mentors from across the Western Hemisphere. And they promote mutual understanding and increase leadership skills and prepare the youth to make a difference in their community. When they apply, they can study abroad in places like Argentina, Chile, Belize, Brazil, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Uruguay. They each have a Spanish immersion program and an English language program. So you each one teach one is what I say. And that's one of our great programs because it's 3 weeks in the summertime, and then you become a youth ambassador for your country, which gives you an opportunity to put that on a resume and on a college application as well. I think I mentioned the Cbyx program, which is a merit-based scholarship program eligible for high school students, and they spend an academic year attending German high schools and living with host families. The program provides volunteers, and they have host families. So we screen the host families and they ensure the safety and success of each participant. So we have many different programs. I'm sorry that kids came in. We have many different programs that that are fully funded and are able to help with increasing your resume and your visual for any school that you're attending.
I wanted to put a plug in for, I put this in the chat as well, but if you're really interested in studying a foreign language in college, and you really want a kind of a specific program for that, definitely do look at the language flagship program. It's also funded by the US government. But I put the information about it there, but if you go into the languages and programs dropdown, you can, even if I just click on the first one, Arabic, it tells you BYU, Brigham Young University, Indiana University, University of Arizona, University of Maryland, University of Mississippi, University of Texas. And so they're kind of all over the place. And even like Western Kentucky, is a huge one for Chinese. So definitely check those out. And you can kind of, the way I understand flagship works is that you participate in this kind of flagship program for 4 years, and then you have the opportunity to apply for a year-long internship in that country doing that language afterwards. And the only way you can kind of participate in that is to have participated in the college program.
Okay, so the last question, then we'll go to the last polling question. There's a question from Destiny Wilson saying, what are your thoughts on the Semester at Sea program?
I guess the Semester at Sea program would be for me, correct? The Semester at Sea program is a great program as well that you can apply for. I think that you apply for as many programs as you can get into and see what happens, because you get the opportunity, and the opportunities are what you want when trying to study abroad, and the experience is what you want as well. So that's what I think.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll launch the next poll. Okay, so those are the results. And the last question of the night is, for all the panelists, is there any advice you can give to young people who will study abroad or learn a foreign language for the first time?
I can answer that question.
Hey, let me add to that question as well, if you don't mind, Kennedy. So there was someone who had an important question about foreign service. So to add to that, in terms of careers with foreign service and what you're doing with international education, if you can add that into the mix as well, with presenting your question, that would be great.
Yeah, so I would say my advice is to not be afraid. As I mentioned earlier in the conversation, when I first left the country, I was 19. I was 19. It was my first time out of the country. I went by myself, didn't know the language, knew absolutely nothing. But I did know that I would get through it and that it would be an amazing experience. And yes, I was a little scared, as you would be when you're going through a big change in your life, but I did it and I conquered it. So my advice is just to not be afraid. Know and understand that you can do whatever you set your mind to, and don't let anyone tell you that you cannot. Because before I went, people were telling me, oh, is that a good idea? Oh, you should be safe. Oh, you should be scared. And I'm like, I'm none of those. Well, I was safe, obviously, but I was not scared. And I didn't feel, threatened for my safety either. So always use discernment, but know that you can do anything that you want and no one can stop you from doing that. And if you really set your mind to it and you work towards it, you can do it. You can go to every single country in the world if you want to. The first person to ever do that actually was a Black woman. So don't ever feel discouraged by the color of your skin or your gender, your religion, your sexual preference, whatever it may be. Just know that you can do whatever you set your mind to. So yeah.
I think a piece of advice that I would get is that it can get hard, especially if you don't have any prior experience learning languages. But just because it's hard doesn't mean you should stop learning the language. Everything will get hard at some point, but just because it's hard doesn't mean you should stop learning the language, especially if it's something that you really want to do, or you really want to go to a different country or like experience a different culture. Don't stop because it's hard, because it'll get easier over time. And you'll look back and you'll be like, oh my goodness, I learned so much. So just because it's hard, I recommend don't stop, just keep on going.
Oh, I second that with Yasmine and MacKenzie. Like, don't just give up because you think that it's difficult. The best thing that you can do for yourself is educate yourself on culture and be culturally aware, because then you'll be so valuable to other places and other people and other schools and other institutions, because you'll be able to educate other people that you meet on what you've learned studying abroad. And people will be fascinated with your story, whether you come from, I don't know, the middle of rural America to the city limits, that people will be fascinated with your story, telling how you made it through another country. And just something like MacKenzie said, the sandwiches in Morocco were like $2. That was like a fascinating story to listen to, because where can you find a sandwich in $2? And these days, I went to Iceland and I had to pay $28 for a sandwich. So just to give you'll see the differences between countries and how they live. So studying abroad is probably one of the best things that you could, or traveling abroad is one of the best things that you can give yourself.
Oh, and I just wanted to add to that really quickly too. You have to decolonize your mind and the way that you think, because I'll be honest, before I went to Morocco, my perception of it was nothing like it actually was. I didn't look down upon it or anything like that, but I didn't expect it to be super like modernized or a very developed place. And there are definitely parts that are a lot more rural, but it was just so vibrant, and it was very, very, the life that they lived there was actually so similar to the life that I live here. It was more similar in Morocco than it was in Italy, surprisingly. So actually Rabat, where I lived, looked just like Miami or something, like a beautiful beach town. So just don't, a lot of people have these negative perceptions about places, or whatever you see in the media that might warp your mind into what a place is going to be like. Before you go, let all of that go in knowing that your experience in that place is going to be what you make it. So just be open-minded and be free in that way.
Okay, so this. Okay, go ahead, Skye. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna let it stay because these ladies all just said, the same things I was gonna say. But what I find so interesting is something MacKenzie just said, that, you kind of think you might know what it might be like, even if it's not good or bad, it just is. And we see this a lot with Yes Abroad students who kind of get frustrated when something happens to them overseas that isn't what they planned to have happened, or we didn't tell them specifically this is going to happen. We prepare participants to be able to handle all types of events, but the biggest challenge, I guess I see for high school students and maybe for college too, is especially growing up in the United States, and especially if you're kind of a go-getter and you're really interested in academics and language, is that you like to try and plan for things to happen. And the best things that happen on study abroad are unpredictable, and they challenge you in so many ways. And one thing we tell participants, especially a lot of participants are academically focused and are used to being so successful, is that you have to get used to being okay with failing every single day. And one alum said one year at our pre-departure orientation, if you're not trying and failing a dozen times a day, you're not doing it right. And I think this concept of like trying and feeling uncomfortable and stepping outside your comfort zone, really, it builds confidence, like I think Yasmine said, and you really just get used to it. And eventually it's not so hard anymore. So I think that's my advice is, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be afraid. Nothing is worth doing if it doesn't scare you like a little bit, and because it means you're growing, and the most growth comes from struggle. And so it's okay to be afraid, but you will come out on the other end a stronger person, better person.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to go ahead and close out because we are over time, which can be good because I think the information that everyone shared today can basically help all the students that are trying to seek opportunities internationally. And I guess for myself, my advice quickly is to make sure you do research. Do research. If let's say if you're watching TV and you're watching something about China, and you say, I want to go there. You know what my suggestion is? Type in high school student going to China. How can I get there? All the times that you're on Instagram and Facebook, whatever social media site you like to be on, take at least 10 minutes of your time to do research on whatever opportunities are out there for you to go to China or wherever country you want to go to. I think that will help you in terms of opportunities that are out there for you. Because what I realized, we've all have been in high school, is that your counselors don't really come to you and tell you what's out there. And even if you do go to them, maybe they don't know necessarily all of the programs that may be right for you. Only you know what's right for you. So if you know that, then I would suggest you try to find that opportunity. And then with that being said, just to hurry up in this program, because we've all been working all day pretty much, and we are very looking forward to the weekend. If you can pull up session 3. So just quickly, we have our last session coming up next month. So please do not forget, we have great speakers to talk about just to talk about their experiences abroad. We do have an alum from Nestle as well, who can talk about State Department programs. But all our speakers range from high school, college, to young professionals. So you will have a wide range of knowledge from different people. So please sign up February 12th. It's on the Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. And then I want to just turn it over to Kennedy to see if she have any last words. And she has done a fantastic job.
I would like to thank all the panelists for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all your resources you have shared and all the information you have shared. It's truly amazing, and I'll be sure to check some of the programs and websites out tonight. You're on mute.
Thank you. I'm getting tired. I would like to echo what Kennedy just stated. Thank you to all our panelists. We really appreciate all the knowledge, resources that you have shared with us tonight. I'm sure that every student can take it and learn from it. In the future, you may see them as your alum, and they can tell this story of how they listened to this particular webinar, and it led to them being a part of one of your programs, and also for the college students like Yasmine and MacKenzie, your knowledge is crucial because you can still relate to the students. We all can. We're still young. Everybody's young, I would say, but you're close to just getting out of high school, and just hearing what you have to say can make a direct impact, because sometimes they don't get an opportunity to talk to college students who are progressing very well personally and professionally. So with that being said, thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you for part 3 next month, February 12th.